Welcome back to another episode of the Cold Blooded Sports Podcast. Today, just going to give a recap of things that happened since our last recorded podcast. I think the biggest thing that happened in these past few days was last night the Eagles were able to pull off a blockbuster trade for the Lions' disgruntled cornerback Darius Slay. So now I'm going to kick it over to my co-host Rob, who's a big Eagles fan, and let him elaborate on it. Darius Slay, he got traded for a third and a fifth, so the Eagles didn't give up too much, and they were also able to extend him to a pretty solid deal, 3 year, $50
Yeah.
million. So
Yeah, man, the highest paid corner now above Byron. I think it's a great deal. I'm happy, man. Eagles fans should be pumped everywhere. This is a great cornerback. You can put him on an island against someone's best receiver. And I saw a thing with over like the 5,000 snaps that he's played so far in his entire career. He's only let two of them be for over 50 plus yards. So the Eagles haven't had a good cornerback like that since Asante Samuel left, and it just really kind of feels relieving to know that there's someone like that locked up for at least 4 more years. He's obviously cornerback number one. I think he's going to stick to the outside as he should. We have two young guys, Maddox and Sidney Jones, who I want them to be trained under Darius Slay with. I think that you can learn techniques from him, and it'll make them, 10 times better, hopefully. But yeah, overall, great scheme fit. Jim Schwartz was the head coach when they drafted him as a Lion. And I heard that Matt Patricia didn't call him a leader and kind of disowned him when he was training with Aqib Talib and Stephon Gilmore this offseason. So that was what I heard made him want to have a trade so bad. It's because Matt Patricia and him never got along, and I don't blame him. But yeah, overall, I'm really hyped to see Darius Slay come over to the Eagles, and hopefully we get some more trades going. But who knows? We'll find out.
yeah, I mean, to just get a player of Slay's caliber for a late round draft pick, well, third and a fifth, like not too much capital, getting that true
Yeah,
number one corner, something that the Eagles have looked for a while,
right.
and
Well,
just being able to have that true number one, that's going to elevate those guys around him. So like you have like a Sidney Jones and a Avante Maddox, they're solid corners, but when they're playing next to an elite guy, that's going to boost everybody. It's going to boost the pass rush. It's going to boost everything. Having a guy like Darius Slay coming over from that Patricia scheme, he was asked to play a lot of man coverage. So he can do a little bit of everything for you. So I think having a guy like that, every team needs a true number one corner, and there's not many of them. So when you can get one, and it was a great deal to be able to get him for not that much.
yeah, and
So I think
yeah, I
it's a win
mean,
for the Eagles.
yeah, for sure. Like back to like what you were saying about having one good person can elevate an entire defense. That kind of can be like what it was with like Richard Sherman and the whole entire other secondary around the Seahawks. When the Eagles went and tried to make a big deal for Byron Jones, he only looked or sorry Byron Maxwell. He only looked good because he was second fiddle to Richard Sherman. So I mean, it really shows you like if you let your main cornerback shadow the best receiver and you put your other corners on mid tier receivers, they're going to play well. They won't be, like the main target being bullied all game by like Amari Cooper or whoever it might be. But also one more thing, it's really important with these comp picks because we got one for Golden Tate, Nick Foles, and Jordan Hicks. We still have 8 picks, and I think we have 3 4th-round picks and a first and a second. So Roseman isn't scared to trade, and I think it was really important, to keep in mind those compensatory picks because as we see, those can come into a huge trade piece like they just did.
Yeah, now I want to kind of talk about like the Lions side of the deal. I mean, they're losing a top 10 corner, and they're bringing in Desmond Trufant, which we don't really know what he is at this point. And it's kind of been rumored over the past, like if you've been looking at mock drafts, they're a heavy Jeff Okuda
Okuda.
team, and I don't really see the point in trading in a number one corner just to get another one. You know what I'm saying? When you could have paired those two
Yeah,
together. So I don't really like the move. I don't really like anything the Lions have done in free agency so far. I think it's not looking good for Patricia. Next season, he's going to come in. He's going to be on the hot seat. I think
yeah,
he's a
for
guy
sure.
that they're looking to get off of if he continues to just disappoint. When you come into a team and you're a defensive minded coach and your defense is as bad as the Lions are, I mean, what's your value? I mean,
Raise
so
some
I just
questions for
think
sure.
I think for the Lions, they have to look to evaluate this head coach position and maybe try to find an upgrade and see what you can do, see what you can get. Maybe look to trade some more people. Just either commit to tank and fire Patricia, or you just got to do something different. You can't just keep settling for this mediocrity and this bad defense when you have a defensive coach.
Right. Well, I
um,
mean, like, oh, sorry, you can go ahead.
no, you're good. I was just
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, well, with me, It's kind of like, with the whole Texans situation, because they're trading like a D back for, probably a D back and like with the fourth pick. It's more of, a whole like, oh, well, we didn't get along type of thing. It's not because, they didn't want to pair up the two people together. I feel like, at least that's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but it's like with Hopkins and Bill O'Brien. They just didn't get along, and that was the case with Patricia and Darius Slay, maybe.
Well, during the
But
season, they had been looking to move him, so that's
yeah,
why.
like
Because it was
because like
rumored that
the
somebody
Eagles
offered a
were.
second round pick for him,
Yep, that's
and
true. Yep.
for them
So
to
I
only
mean,
get a third and a fifth. I mean, I just think they mismanaged the whole situation. And if you were planning on moving him, then you probably should have moved him when you could have got something. And it's very similar what the Texans did with Jadeveon Clowney. They waited too long to move him; his value had depleted, and they weren't able to get a lot. So
yeah,
I mean, I
for
just think the
sure.
Lions, they just really need to just reevaluate the whole organization. It's going to be a long rebuild. Feel sorry for Matt Stafford. Hopefully he can find a way to get out of Detroit. I mean, we don't even know if he's ready to play because he has that back injury.
Hmm.
Um, so,
Yeah.
and with that, we
Speaking
can
of
transition
the
to
NFC
another,
North,
yeah,
yeah,
team. The
let's go to the
Bears.
Bears.
The Bears have Mr. Trubisky, but they
Hmm.
needed somebody to push him. So they traded for Nick Foles. Now, Nick Foles, he's very familiar with Nagy, and a lot of those guys. I believe Filippo was in Philly with him,
Yep.
so
Trey
there's
Burton was there.
familiar teammates, coaches. I don't really know how I feel about it because I don't know if it's necessarily a big upgrade, but then again, Mr. Trubisky is not the guy, and I think they're messing up just trying to prove it and make him the guy. And I think that's what separates good organizations from bad organizations. When you mess up, you just have to deal with it and just move on instead of trying to force it. And I think they're trying to force Trubisky. And Nick Foles is obviously the better player. I mean, when you
Yeah.
got all these big targets like Nick Foles, when he was at his best, he had a big body receiver, a guy that can go underneath, and that's kind of similar with to what the Bears have with Allen Robinson and Anthony Miller in the slot. They have some guys that could really help Nick Foles. The offensive line is solid. So, I mean, I think with Nick Foles, they have a higher ceiling than they do with Trubisky because Trubisky is just so inconsistent. Trubisky he'll play three, like this past season, he played three great games in a row. And then the rest of the season, he was absolutely garbage. So, I just think for
Hmm.
them, you're taking on a lot of money. Um, but if you think that's an upgrade, you have to do it. And for the Jags, I love this for the Jags. The Jags admitted that they messed up. They went all in. They're one of the few teams that went all in trying to win a Super Bowl, and now they're paying for it with just what they did with Blake Bortles, giving him that extension. It really
Ramsey,
just it
all that.
rooted the whole team, and now they're just trying to tear it down and restart with Gardner Minshew, and you don't even know if he's the guy. So Jacksonville, I think it's good for them to get more picks because they need picks. They have a lot of holes. Um, but
Yeah.
for the Bears, I mean, it's more of a lateral move. It's not really a upgrade necessarily, but I think Nick Foles can do some good things for the Bears and maybe get him into that wild card conversation since we're adding a new playoff team, a seventh team to the playoffs. Maybe the Bears could squeak in there with the Vikings losing some key players. Their whole secondary's gone. Trading
Stephon
Stephon Diggs
Diggs. Yep.
obviously is going to be a big hole. So maybe their team, Nick Foles can get them to the playoffs and maybe that magic kicks in again and he becomes the Nick Foles that won Super Bowl MVP. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much hit it all on all cylinders. I mean, like Nick Foles will be, the guy who Trubisky's like, okay, well, maybe I need to actually try my hardest now that there's competition here. But also, I just feel like Nick Foles is still, all around a better player. Maybe he's not better at scrambling, of course, we know that, but I think he has by far a better arm, better accuracy, and he's probably more of a leader. I also saw that players like Cordero Patterson and all of that, they were trying to recruit other quarterbacks like Teddy Bridgewater to the team on social media. And it's like, if you're Trubisky, how do you feel knowing that you're losing, your locker room? Like your receivers that you have to have A1 chemistry with are trying to recruit other people to your team to take your position. You know what I mean? So hopefully, people in Chicago figure it out fast. But overall, I do think that Nick Foles takes the job coming up this next season.
Yeah, I mean, and it just shows you like the Bears, they did everything right to win a Super Bowl. Look at their roster from top to bottom. They have elite players at every position except quarterback. So it just shows you how hard it is to find a quarterback. And if you think you have a guy that's not necessarily good, it could hinder your franchise, and it cost them a chance at maybe making a run at the Super Bowl with that roster they had a couple years ago because
Yep.
they messed up at quarterback. They had a
If
chance
you
to
would have
get
just picked
Deshaun Watson.
Mahomes or
They had
Watson,
a
yeah.
chance to get Patrick Mahomes, but they whiffed, and they have to deal with it. And I think if the Bears would have moved on sooner and admitted it and stopped trying to mask it and just admit you messed up, maybe they end up being able to get something more for Trubisky. Maybe you trade him, maybe something of that nature instead of just they're essentially just going to let him go because I don't think they're going to pick up his 5th-year option next year.
I would hope
Um,
not.
but anyways, on the quarterback carousel, Phillip Rivers is going to head to Indianapolis on a 1-year deal worth $25 million. I actually like this fit. And the Chargers have never given Phillip Rivers an offensive line. And Phillip Rivers isn't that gunslinging quarterback he used to be. His arms gotten weaker than it
Yeah.
used to be. So I think with Indy, they have enough receivers that are good at getting open. You got a T.Y. Hilton. Hopefully you can get something out of Paris Campbell, their 2nd-round pick from last year. But I think it's a good fit for the Colts because Jacoby Brissett, he's a nice quarterback, but he's probably the best backup type. He's like the 32nd best quarterback. He's
For
the
sure.
best backup in the league type deal. So I think it's a good move for them to get a veteran quarterback because I mean the AFC South isn't looking that good outside of Tennessee. I think Tennessee is probably the favorite,
that
but
could be
Tennessee,
a sneaky 7th seed.
yeah, because I mean Tennessee, who knows? I mean, is Ryan Tannehill going to play at this high level or is he going to regress back to what he was in Miami as a middle of the pack quarterback because he played like a top 10 quarterback over that 10-game stretch when he was a starter.
Yep, and then also, will teams game plan for Henry strictly and, make Tannehill be great in order for them to win games too? So, things like that.
Yeah, but I mean, for the Colts, I mean, getting a guy that is more reliable at the position, like Jacoby Brissett's a solid starter, but he doesn't have that high upside of a Phillip Rivers to where, in the game's on the line. I know the Chargers haven't been clutch, but I have more faith in Phillip Rivers to make a big drive to win me the game than I do Jacoby Brissett. It's nothing against Jacoby Brissett. He's a fine player, but Phillip Rivers is a clear upgrade. And for the Colts, it's a 1-year deal, $25 million. You have a lot of cap space, so it's not hindering you. It's kind of giving you another year to maybe evaluate the position. If it doesn't work, it's only a 1-year deal. And who knows? They have the they don't have a 1st-round pick anymore, but they have the second pick in the 2nd round from the Redskins when the Redskins traded up last year to get Montez Sweat. So they still have some capital. That's a pretty valuable pick. Maybe they trade back up into the later end of the 1st round to get maybe a guy is falling or something. So this move allows them to have that flexibility to still look for a quarterback, but it gives them an immediate upgrade right now. So I think it's a win-win move. The Colts are one of the more well-run organizations in the league, so I have pretty good faith in that it'll work. But if it doesn't, you're not hindered long-term, so it's a win-win for the Colts. Shout out to Chris Ballard, my guy. I love what he's doing so far.
One more little
go ahead.
One more little thing too. Frank Reich, the new head coach for them, actually was the coordinator for the Chargers
in San Diego. Yeah.
So they already have previous connections. So I'm sure that they'll keep the same offense that Rivers was used to, and hopefully it'll give them a head start on knowing the offense and being successful next year. But with that, let's go talk about Tom Brady to Tampa Bay. Let's talk about some pros with this. Nick, go ahead and start it off, man.
Well, I think the pros is that Tom Brady has elite weapons. When you have a guy in Mike Evans, he's more of that big body contested guy. Then opposite of that, you have Chris Godwin, who's more of the separator, route runner, and also OJ Howard. If the Bucs can get anything out of OJ Howard this season, it's an immediate win for Tom Brady. We all know Tom Brady loves his tight ends, and OJ Howard is definitely one of the better tight ends in the league. He's a good run blocker. He could do a little bit of everything, and just it wasn't working last year. So hopefully Brady can elevate him. So I think him having those weapons is the biggest pro of him joining the team. Another pro for me would be having a Bruce Arians type of coach. Bruce Arians is definitely gonna put his arm around Tom Brady, something he's never had. Maybe Brady has more flexibility with the offense, but that's kind of a con too. One of my cons for this move is that Bruce Arians' system is based on deep shots. And Tom Brady doesn't have that arm like he used to have. Like he's 43 years old. His arm has gotten a little bit weaker. He's not throwing it to Randy Moss like he did in 2007 as deep. He can't do that anymore. So I think that's probably one of the cons, because I think if you're looking at it fit wise, Jameis Winston is the perfect quarterback for Bruce Arians' system.
Oh yeah,
But Jameis
totally.
Winston just doesn't have the processor to be able to read the defense and not throw it to linebackers
Yeah.
in the middle of the field. And just, so, I mean, it's good that he has weapons now, because in New England, he didn't have the best weapons. The offensive line was eh. I mean, Tampa's offensive line is eh too, but maybe they can get a tackle. Maybe a tackle falls to them at 14. I believe they picked 14th,
Mm-hmm.
something of that nature. And it's also rumored that a lot of guys are interested in coming to Tampa now that they have Tom Brady. So that's another
Yeah.
pro for the Bucs and Tom Brady. Maybe they can get some of these guys to take a little bit less money to try to make a run at the Super Bowl. So who knows with that? So I don't know what you'd want to say about the pros and
Uh,
cons of Brady to
well,
Tampa.
one pro I have for sure is that, having someone of Tom Brady's caliber, going into the Hall of Fame, 6-time champion, he's going to be, making the whole team motivated. That's going to make the offense, want to go up there and make plays because, you know, you feel honored as a Buccaneer for someone, like for Tom Brady to leave his legacy in New England and come play for your team because he picked you guys for a reason. You know what I mean? So with that being said, you want to go out there and show him that he made the right choice picking your team. And not only that, you go from Jameis Winston, no offense, but from him to Tom Brady, and it's like, wow, holy shit. Excuse my language, but Tom Brady is like, that's you can't. Not everyone can say that they played with Tom Brady in their career, and that just makes them want to go out there and ball. So that's my pro. A con though is Tom Brady is no. I mean, okay, of course he didn't have receivers in New England, but we know that Tom Brady likes to pass to his running backs. Hopefully he can adjust from that, and like you were mentioning, his arm isn't as big as it used to be, so maybe he doesn't take as many deep threats or deep shots because they lost Perriman. But I don't know. Hopefully he tries to avoid passing out to that running back out of the backfield. Hopefully he tries to become more of a big time play caller and playmaker, but who knows, we'll find out.
Yeah, and another thing for Tampa too is for them to be able to sign Brady to, I believe it's a $30 million a year deal or whatever. That's what it's rumored to be. It also allows them to put the franchise tag on Shaq Barrett. I believe they already did, but that's going to help that defense because I mean, in that conference, that division, you're going to need defense. So I think they really need to build his defense. And as you were saying, he likes his running backs to be able to throw too short. Dion Lewis could be a great fit here if
Yeah,
they kind of implement that Brady like scheme. He got cut from the Titans. I think that'd be a great fit to offset if they still believe in Ronald Jones. Maybe have him as the third down back. Bring him in. Maybe even try to take a swing at a Julian Edelman. Just bring in guys that Tom Brady does trust
for
outside of
sure.
those two elite receivers. So I mean that's a pretty good move. And I mean there's also a pretty good running back in theory that just got released that could be an upgrade.
Yeah,
And
speaking of the
I think
devil,
that's what we can transition to next.
yep, let's talk about
Um,
Todd Gurley, man,
the
released today.
Rams, yeah, released Todd Gurley. They're another team that went for it all. Gave out these massive contracts, trying to sell tickets to that LA market. It's
Didn't
just
work.
crazy that they've cut him and he hasn't even got to the extension part of his deal yet because they signed him early. So I believe it's $20 million in dead cap over the next 2 years. So it's a
Sounds about
hefty
right.
price to cut Todd Gurley. Um, the
Yeah, I
problem with
mean,
Todd Gurley is he's not what he used to be. He's suffering from a degenerative knee problem, arthritis. So he's never going to be that elite running back. He can't take the wear and tear. So I like it's crazy that they just couldn't find a trade partner,
yeah,
but that
like
just
you
shows you
couldn't find even like a 7th or a 6th round pick. Like that's just
it just
crazy to
shows you
me.
how devalued the position has come.
Yeah.
When you're a guy that's picked 10th overall, elite prospect coming from Georgia, looking like one of the top running backs. He was the best running back in the league at one point, similar to
Oh,
David
no doubt.
Johnson.
No doubt.
And it's just crazy how it's just a replaceable position. It's nothing against the guys that are at the position, but it's just easy to find somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, that's
and
pretty crazy.
he with his release, Josina Anderson reported that his two favorite destinations are going to be the Falcons and Miami. The Falcons make sense because they released Devontae Freeman after signing him to a big contract. That's kind of a theme here we're seeing. All these running backs have been released or traded that signed big contracts. We've
Also,
seen David Johnson get traded, Gurley
yep,
released, and Freeman released. So
yep.
I
But
don't know what that means for the running back position.
But what kind of makes me confused is that, didn't the Dolphins just sign Jordan Howard?
They did, to a 2-year deal
So,
worth $10 million. Maybe
Jordan
Tampa
Howard
gets in
left,
on the Tom Brady.
or Gurley.
I mean, the
Um,
Gurley. Oh my gosh.
yeah, but hopefully, the Dolphins, because Jordan Howard left Philly to not be like this, because he wants to have his own team. Like if he would have stayed in Philly, he would have been, like a rotational back. I think that Jordan Howard went to Miami to, try and like set in stone his own team as as the running back. But I mean, yeah, I would agree more with him going to the Falcons than the Dolphins. The Dolphins aren't in any chance of contending. Um, they're still kind of like rebuilding, and they don't have an O line, so I don't see the point of that. I mean, the Falcons, they have a far better O line, and I think they have more weapons around them, and also you have Matt Ryan as your quarterback. So I would approve of him going to the Falcons more than the Dolphins. But then again, the Dolphins, Florida has no state tax, um, and also Florida, it's South Beach. But yeah, I don't know. Todd Gurley, it sucks. He was, as Nick alluded to, he was the best running back in the league at one point. It just shows you how,
MVP caliber player.
yeah, I mean, it just shows you how you can be so good and just like that, you're gone. I mean, it's kind of like Le'Veon Bell with the Steelers. Like, the Steelers were like, oh my God, we need Le'Veon. And then the next year, James Conner comes in and, no one even cares about Le'Veon anymore. So it just shows you how versatile that position is and how easily you could just be swept under the rug.
Yeah, I think the league has kind of been put on notice by all the transactions between these teams and these running backs on their second contracts is that it's not really worth it. There's too much wear and tear on their tires.
Yeah.
They go through 3 years of college, for some 2 years if they redshirt, and that's a lot of carries. I mean, you look at a guy like Derrick Henry. He had so many carries his senior year or his junior year before he came out, and it's eventually going to catch up to him. And I just think these teams are just they're not going to keep wanting to pay these running backs after
Yeah,
they.
no doubt.
It's just like it's like a factory. You can just wear them down and go get a new one, and it's a sad reality for that position.
Yeah.
But it's kind of just like in basketball, like there's not a true center anymore or a true power forward. We're looking for shooters. You want to have that spacing, and it's just the way that the NFL is. It's more spread. You're looking for a running back that can be more of a receiver, like a Christian McCaffrey,
Yeah,
a
one
type running
that
back
can
like
do it
that.
all. I mean, yeah,
So
because like we saw with like DeMarco Murray, for example, he balled out for the Cowboys, and the Eagles took a big whiff on him, and like he didn't do anything. So I was gonna make an argument that maybe power backs could be, the ones that last the longest, but I feel like they probably wouldn't. Maybe I mean like someone like Zeke, maybe I would consider, giving them him a max deal because that is the Cowboys offense. But like, I don't know if I would give anyone else that's a power back that big of a deal. Like you said, McCaffrey's or Kamara's might get a big deal, but I don't know about anyone else.
yeah, another guy that I want to bring up is Austin Eckler. I mean, he's a guy. He got a second contract, but he's more of a receiver than a running back. So I think that's the way the league is going to start thinking, seeing what the Chargers did with him, and
Yeah,
letting go of a star running back, a star caliber running back in Melvin Gordon, just letting him walk out the door because they found a guy in Austin Eckler that can. He's not as good as running between the tackles. He can still get it done, and he's a better receiver. So I think that's the trend going forward in the NFL.
yeah. All
Um,
right.
and yeah, I want to talk about the Raiders. Last year, the Raiders had one of the worst defense in the leagues.
Drafting
It was
Cleveland
horrible.
Farrell.
They had a horrible draft. I don't know why people think they had a great draft. In the first round, they drafted a guy that should have been a second round pick in Cleveland Farrell. They drafted a running back while he was
Who's
an
okay,
impactful player.
arguably.
When you trade Khalil Mack, you can't replace him with a running back. Then
Yeah.
Jonathan Abram, that was the Cowboys pick or something. The Cowboys pick was, or one of them was Mack or whatever. It was
Right.
they drafted Abram and the running back to
Yeah.
replace Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper. And it's like those are two positions of value. It's kind of like we were talking about with the Texans. Edge and receiver are more valuable than a box safety and a running
A
back.
running
And
back.
it's Josh Jacobs
As
is a
we
fine
just
player.
talked about.
He's a fine player, but what did it do for the Raiders? It didn't do anything for them
Nothing.
wins and losses. It's kind of like Saquon Barkley to the Giants. He might be the best pure running back when you look at if you wanted to build a running back, you would build Saquon Barkley. What has it done for the
Yep.
Giants?
Not a
It didn't
dang thing.
improve their win-loss thing. So this year, I love what they did. The linebackers for the Raiders last year, Tahir Whitehead, horrible in coverage.
Mm-hmm.
I love what they did. They went out and signed Nick Kwiatkowski from the Bears, solid in coverage, and then they steal Corey Littleton from the Rams, who
Finessed him.
quietly emerged as one of the best pass coverage linebackers in the league. And he signed a 3-year, $36 million contract. So you're getting an elite coverage linebacker for $12 million a season, which is an absolute steal. You're looking at a guy
Yep.
like C.J. Mosley. He's getting paid, I believe, 17 a season, and he's
Something
okay in
crazy.
coverage, but he's more of a run stuffer. They're getting a guy that's an elite pass coverage linebacker, which is going to be needed in that division when you're going against an Austin Eckler out the backfield. All the
Yep.
weapons that the Chiefs have, and the Broncos also have a nice little scat back. Philip Lindsay, they got some good receivers out there too. So having that coverage linebacker to be able to match up with the Broncos tight end Noah Fan as well, and all those and Kelsey, you can't
Travis
forget about
Kelce,
Kelsey.
Damian
Yeah.
Williams. Who else we got? Hunter Henry, Austin Eckler, as you just said. Yeah, I mean that's pretty crucial. Someone like that can be your captain of your defense, and also like you're not going to get beat over the middle. On a crazy route that shouldn't be something that you get beat on. But yeah, going back to what you were saying.
Yeah, and also for that move allows them to maybe, instead of having to pick a position like that in the draft,
Yeah.
now with their first pick they can look at a receiver, they can look at a corner, another position of need type deal, instead of having to, we have no coverage linebackers, we have to get one and take one before you want to. Maybe have to take a Patrick Queen a little early or a Kenneth Murray a little early, because I don't think they're going to be able to get Isaiah Simmons. So it allows them to have more flexibility with the draft and be able to take best player available, which I think is the best philosophy to have for teams.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Anything else
Yeah.
you want to say about the Raiders?
Nah, I mean John Gruden's a happy guy. Let's move on to Jadeveon Clowney. Jadeveon Clowney is unhappy right now with the offers he's getting in the market. He came into the offseason, thinking he was going to get a huge deal, and just teams just don't want to give him the money that he wants. So we don't really know where he wants to go or what teams are offering him. But where should he go, Nick? Like, where do you think he wants to go, and what teams should he go to?
It's definitely going to be some of these needier edge teams. So I think the Eagles could use him. I think both teams actually all three teams in New York could use him. Maybe the Ravens, maybe the Colts. I don't know if I already mentioned them. They have a lot of money,
Mm-hmm.
but I just think the thing with Clowney is he's a great player, elite run defenders, and he's a good pass rusher. That's kind of
Yeah.
the thing with Clowney's. When he was drafted number one overall, everybody thought he was going to be the next elite tier edge rusher on that Von Miller, Khalil Mack level, and he's just not. He's great against the run and a good pass rusher. And I think a lot of teams need more pass rush. And when you're looking at a guy like Clowney, he just doesn't offer that. Like, you
Yeah.
want him to be. It's like he's a very polarizing player. It's like you see
Right.
his highlights when he's out on the top of his game. He's in that tier with those guys, but it's not consistent. It's like a week
It's
to
once
week
every
thing.
4 games or
Like
whatever.
this past year against San Francisco, he dominated that game. He was the best defensive player on the field. But then again, the next week you'll tune in and he's just not there. So that's a problem with him. Is like he's never been consistent. Like you want him to be great, because you turn on the tape, you see that hit against Michigan in that bowl game. You see just how much of a
Crazy.
freak athlete he is, and you want him to be that elite edge rusher, and he's just not. Maybe and another team, maybe the Seahawks want to bring him back, but
Yeah, I did see
it's
that.
also rumored that they were interested in Matthew Judon and Yannick Ngakoue, so maybe they're not high on Clowney. Um,
I don't
Hence,
know.
they didn't franchise tag him or anything of that nature. So I
Well,
think for Clowney, go ahead.
I mean, for me, I feel like the Seahawks might feel obligated to maybe want to bring him back if they don't get Judon or Ngakoue, because they gave up like what, a second round pick for him or something like that.
A third.
Yeah, I mean a third. And with this draft class, there's a lot of people that are going to be there in the third round still. So maybe they feel obligated to bring him back because hey, we gave up a third for him. We should probably keep him and give him one more year or something like that. I wouldn't be opposed to for for a team to give him a 1 year prove it deal, like prove to me that you're consistent, as Nick was talking about. But yeah, I did hear that he wants to go to the Giants or any team in New York. But if the market's just not there for him, I wouldn't be surprised to see him just maybe stay with Seattle because he knows the team already. But yeah, back to you, man.
Yeah, and at least with Seattle, if they do lose him, they'll get a comp pick back.
True.
So it's not the end of the world. You can get that third round pick back. I just think that the Seahawks defense hasn't been the same since they lost that pure speed rusher off the edge like Cliff Averill. So I think for them, they would rather have a guy like Yannick rather than Matt Judon and Clowney, who are more power rushers. I think Yannick would be a perfect fit in Seattle, but I just don't know if they're willing to part with the capital to get him and pay him. Um, but I think for them that would be a great move, and we can transition into Yannick.
Yeah,
As
let's
you were
let's
excited
talk
earlier,
about
Yannick
Yannick.
was flirting with the Eagles all day on his Instagram.
Yeah,
So
Yannick
I'll let you talk
is
about that.
Yannick is leading Philly fans on, man. It's not fair. Yannick Ngakwe has been posting pictures of Reggie White, an eagle emoji, and he's been liking Eagles media people's tweets on Twitter talking about him having interest going there. Would I love Yannick as an Eagle? Yes, but not for a first round pick. I wouldn't be opposed to a second round pick, but we need a receiver bad. And Roseman knows that, our GM. And I feel like we would be dumb to give up a first round pick. And Ngakwe, I believe he has I think he has like more sacks than our, okay, so we drafted Derek Barnett with the 14th or something like that pick 3 years ago. And Ngakwe has more sacks than he has, and I think less seasons than him. And he's only 24 too, which is crazy. Um, but yeah, he wants to get paid. I would not be opposed to the Eagles paying him if they were to trade for him. But a team with the D line like Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, and Yannick would be deadly. So I, for one, would love it, but I would not want to give up too much for him because we do not need we don't need a D end that bad. It would be nice to have him, but I'm not going to gamble my future for my quarterback getting an elite receiver possibly for a D end. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, and realistically, because you're gonna have to pay him. Teams don't. Most of the time, teams will take a second. I feel like a second round pick is what the Jags are looking for Yannick, just
Right.
because a team is gonna have to pay him. And also, I mean, yeah, like in Seattle too. I think he'd be a great fit for you guys as well because you guys don't really have that pure speed rusher off the edge that I can
Yeah, we
think of.
don't.
I don't know if I'm
Nah.
forgetting anybody, but because you got a
Well,
guy in Brandon
you
Graham.
could say Josh Sweat, but Josh Sweat
Yeah,
is a
he's more of a
prototype.
rotational. He's like a
Yeah.
fourth edge rusher that you bring in, but they don't have that pure number one type speed rusher.
No
We have
one
a
like
guy like
Brian
Brandon
Burns.
Graham.
Yeah.
Brandon Graham is more of that bigger body, in he can play inside out type
Yeah.
guy. If they could get a pure speed rusher, that'd really help that defense. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it depends on how much he'd want. I don't know if Yannick Ngakoue is necessarily resetting the edge rusher market. Maybe something a little bit less than those top tier guys.
Yeah.
Because I kind of feel like he's in that tier below those
I
elite
think
guys.
he's
He's in
below
that.
Mac and Vaughn, but he's above
He's
people.
in
I
there
mean,
with he's
he's
in
in
that
there
tier
with
with the
maybe I would say
Jadavian.
like, yeah, Jadavian or
Like
Cam
yeah.
Jordan. Yeah.
So
Maybe Cam
I
Jordan's
mean,
above. I don't know.
if the Eagles can land him for a second, that's ideal. Um, because you'd have to extend him obviously. So that'd
Yeah.
leave them flexibility to go get a receiver in the first round, add Yannick to that defense, and finally get some and also adding Slay to that. If
What's
you
it?
came
Yeah.
away with Slay and Yannick and
You
getting
win free
a good
agency.
receiver in the first
He didn't
round,
even sign anybody.
that's great for Philly.
Well, yeah. What's also important too, I'm sorry to cut you off. This is just really important to me. It's, like a great D line can cover up a bad secondary. And I'm not saying that Slay's making the secondary bad. He's making it 10 times better.
Well, kind
But
of like San Francisco. Like
yeah, I mean, like,
they
yeah,
had one great corner
like
and a bunch of just guys, but because that
exactly.
pass rush was so elite,
Like Nick Bosa,
um,
DeForest Buckner, and Eric Armstead, they're making the quarterback hurried so fast that your corners
that
don't need to
you
have a
can
fight
have an
with
Emmanuel
receivers.
Mosley out there
Yeah, I
and
mean,
not
like,
get
look at the
toasted.
year when we had, Ronald Darby and Jalen Mills as our cornerbacks. Like, we survived. I mean, we won that game because Brandon Graham got a strip sack on Tom Brady. So, I mean, it just shows you having a great D line, and the Eagles have always prioritized having a great trench. It just shows you, having a great D line can actually win you championships. But that was just what I wanted to point out because it's really important.
No, I mean, yeah, I think for Philly, if you were able to walk away with those two guys in free agency, it's a huge win. We'll see what they do in the draft. Maybe they could possibly trade up. get one of those elite receivers, or just have somebody fall to them.
I
But
hope so.
either way, if you can come away with Yannick and Slay, I'd be pretty happy with that.
Yeah.
Another signing that I want to talk about that I think is kind of under the radar, hasn't really been talked about a lot, is Chris Harris going to the Chargers. I don't
I don't like
necessarily
it.
where he fits. I don't know where he fits
Yeah.
because they already have Desmond King in the slot. I don't know if they
Casey
want to move
Hayward
him outside.
outside.
But
Yeah.
I think Harris can play outside, and it's more of a zone scheme. It's that Seattle cover 3 scheme. So I don't know how the fit will work, but I mean, getting an elite slot corner like that for that cheap, maybe Desmond King does have the flexibility to play outside. We've just never seen it because
Isn't he like 5'10" though?
Casey Hayward was a pure slot corner in Green Bay, came out
Mm-hmm.
to the Chargers, and he became one of the better outside corners. So you never know what you got until you try it. Um, and either way, I mean, NFL teams' base defense is basically nickel. So you need that position. It's a very valuable position. And Chris Harris can still offer a lot. Um, as an outside
Yeah.
corner, he's solid. I mean, you going against number 2 receivers, you can live with Chris Harris as your number
Sustainable.
2. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I just think that getting him on that deal is a lot better than going and overpaying a guy like James Bradbury. Um, so that's why I really liked it for the Chargers, being able to get him for a 2-year, $20 million contract, which is less than a lot of these guys are getting. So, I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
think on just a value standpoint, I really like it. I don't know where he's going to play, but
They'll
I think
find
it's a
a way
good
for
problem to
sure.
have. So,
Yeah. I like how they have Derwin James, Nazir Adderley, and all of them. Like that's a pretty good secondary. Um, I wouldn't say that their D line is that special anymore, but besides Joey Bosa, but I mean like that secondary is going to be really good. Moving
yeah, and
on.
we can hang on. I want to talk about the Chargers quarterback plan too, because it
Oh,
came
okay,
out
all
that
right.
they're rolling with Tyrod Taylor. Yeah,
Yeah,
they were
not
in
for
the
long.
Brady sweepstakes.
Not until
They
April.
were in the Brady sweepstakes, and it's been apparent to them that Tom is going to Tampa. So I just think for them, I think Tyrod can be that. He's a perfect bridge quarterback. Now at 6, I don't know who they're going to be able to get.
Probably
I don't know
Herbert.
if a 2 is still there, but maybe a Herbert. And if you could have Herbert and let him sit behind um, Tyrod, it's a good deal for them. And I just think the Chargers need to find that quarterback. Maybe they take a chance on a Jameis Winston, maybe something along those lines. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do
Yeah,
at quarterback, but Tyrod isn't the long term answer. Um,
yeah. Well, we'll
the Chargers
find
are an
out.
interesting team. So, I mean, because they really need another tackle with that first pick. So maybe they're a team that goes best player with their first pick. Maybe they come up in the later end of the first, like the Colts can, and maybe try to get a Jordan Love if he's falling, a Herbert. Maybe they take a chance on an Eason, somebody of that nature. I mean, I'm
Right.
not a big fan of those guys, but if you can sit him and you like his physicals, then we've seen it work, we've seen it fail. So I just think they're in a very interesting spot.
Yeah.
And for the last thing I want to talk about today is
What the whole
just
world's talking about.
yeah, what the whole world's talking about. Came out today that the Saints head coach Sean Payton, he is the first NFL person associated with the NFL to have the coronavirus, and it's just crazy how this whole thing is just taking over the world,
Mm-hmm.
shutting
Ruining
down
everyone's
schools,
sports lives.
and yeah, I mean it's just crazy how fast it's spreading, and I just encourage everybody to just stay safe, wash your hands, take care of your business, because
Stay away
we
from people
gotta
within 10 feet.
yeah.
Yeah. I
um
mean, it's just crazy. Like, you think that it can't happen to you until it happens to you because with viruses like this, they spread like crazy. You could be talking to one person who's been somewhere like, an airport, for instance, and people travel through the airport like crazy. And, you know, you just don't even know it, but you might have it. I heard that there's symptoms that can, be hidden for at least 14 days or at most 14 days. So, I mean, bottom line is just be cautious, make sure that you're doing your due diligence, you're staying hygienic. You're not going to mass gatherings like people in Florida are right now. Um, yeah, and just as long as we, as a whole, make sure that we're doing our job, this is gonna get completely taken care of in months. But yeah, I mean, it's just crazy, because like this is the first, like aside from us with the NBA, for the NFL, this is the first one that hits close to home because, a head coach, he was at the combine.
That's what I was
He
just gonna
was,
say. Like the
yeah, like
combine, like
he was at
all
the
those
combine.
coaches.
He's been at pro days, I'm sure, before they got canceled. Exactly. He talks to other coaches. He talks to players before they sign. So it's just crazy.
Just
This is
being
all
in the
going to lead.
facility, him being in the
Yeah,
facility,
him
because
touching a
they're there
handrail.
all the time.
Exactly. Like him touching a handrail, him eating food and like using like one of those things to pick things up. It can get transferred so easily. And it's crazy. Like we saw with the NBA, Kevin Durant has it now. First it was Rudy Gobert and then Donovan Mitchell and then someone on the Pistons had it. So I mean, it's spreading pretty fast and you don't even know you have it. Like people are they're not showing symptoms but they test positive for it. So, like it's just crazy because I think that he said that he went to some horse race or whatever on Saturday and he didn't feel well and he came back and got tested on Sunday and then he found out yesterday that he had it. So yeah, I mean it's just crazy.
With that, anything else you want to say before we wrap this up?
We do hope to have another mock draft coming out post free agency by next Friday. So stick around and stay tuned for that because there will be some trades going on in that as you guys have seen with the Colts. And there might be some surprising ones, some risers, some fallers going on with who like what team signed what. But yeah, stick around for that next week.
All right. And as always, if you're watching this on YouTube, please like, comment, subscribe. Let us know how you feel. Check out our Twitter page at Cold Blooded Chat. Interact with us. We're always posting latest news. If there was sports going on, we'd post clips of stuff of that nature. And as always, thank you guys for listening and have a wonderful day. Stay safe out there.